They don't leave you alone whether you're in the womb or you're in the graveyard even. You get no peace from them, or they try at least to prevent that. They're evil, they're sick, really. It's got nothing to do with their so-called security or survival. They are, this is about theft, greed, about expansion, about the same Western colonialism we've been seeing for centuries. And I think people here also understand that if they don't show this defiance and they don't keep their practices going, their traditions going, and they stay in the land, that they could end up like other extinct peoples.
Welcome, Habibi Richard, to South Lebanon. We're in Abria. So this is the beginning of your political asylum.
Yeah.
This was gonna be your house where we're gonna hide you, but as you can see, the Israelis preempted. But honestly, this is, to be truthful, without a joke, this is one of the hundreds, if not thousands, of Lebanese civilian homes that were targeted. This looks like the stairway to heaven right now. Yeah. What's left of it. You can see the tiles of the kitchen.
Yeah.
The kitchen must have been right there. And but let's be careful while you're going up. But let's try to take a look at behind us there, the Golan Heights. Your homeland, Syria, on the other side there. You can see Jabal al-Sheikh.
It's amazing.
And the Israelis obviously are occupying now the peak.
Yeah.
On the Syrian side. They are starting to take Daraa, and they're trying to reach to Suwaida.
Yeah.
And I personally, as a Syrian and as a Palestinian, I hope that they're stupid enough to expand all the way to Suwaida, which will put them on the border of Iraq, which will make them much easier target for Iraqi resistance. It also will mean that they spread all their too thin. Their arrogance is making them think that they can occupy such a huge territory. That it's between Suwaida and the Golan, that's bigger than most of historic Palestine.
Yeah, it makes sense to take advantage of the situation like that, but you don't want to spread yourself too thin. That's just because then it starts becoming counterproductive.
The other thing is that obviously Suwaida is the Druze majority area, and we heard Netanyahu make a statement saying we want to protect our cousins, the Druze, which is an illusion because he thinks he's dealing with Druze in Palestine. The Druze of Syria,
they're Syrian. They feel Syrian, and they identify as Syrian,
and they call themselves Arabs.
Right.
And also, they led the resistance against French occupation.
Correct.
And Amir al-Atrash, the prince of... yesterday I watched an interview with his granddaughter. She's also calling for armed resistance from the Druze to the Israeli occupation. I wish and I hope that they're stupid enough, the Israelis, to go into Suwaida.
I gotta be honest with you. It's kind of ironic that they take Daraa because that's the birthplace of the so-called revolution, as they say.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like come full circle, and it doesn't bring me pleasure to say it, but maybe people there kind of wake up and understand that when they ask for regime change, that it means regime change and everything it entails.
Yeah.
This land is it has a price. You have to make a choice, and you can't allow the Israelis 1 inch, because if you do, they'll take advantage, and they're showing that, and it's never going to be enough for them. They have their Greater Israel project, and it's just tragic how it went from Greater Syria 120 years ago to to this.
We're getting closer and closer to Palestine. The ridge up there is the Israeli bases. You can see two towers.
Yeah.
That's the Abbad military base. Behind this ridge is the Hula Valley, which was supposed to be part of Lebanon, but the French gave it to the English in 1932.
Yeah, these are the ones that we were seeing being hit almost on a daily basis. And, you know, I mean, if you consider the spy capabilities that they have, they've got, you know, infrared, that includes microphones, not just visual. So, you know, these lasers, they can hit several kilometers away. They work inside rooms as well. You know, they hit like a frame of a picture and then it bounces back, and very, very sophisticated stuff, not to mention the cameras. And, you know, them having Mount Haramoun now, in addition to that, is definitely a blow. But the question is, how long can they hold on to it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the resistance was hitting all these towers and the surveillance equipment they had to try to block their ability to collect this information. They were very successful. I mean,
Yeah,
using those ATGMs to hit the little camera with it.
yeah.
Even the Russians were saying these are the most well-trained sharpshooters in ATGM history, because these missiles were not made to shoot.
They're made
like
for
this.
tanks usually, yeah, or armored vehicles, and they're using them. They're using them in pretty much everything, and you can't stop them.
Yeah.
They're too low level for, you know, Iron Dome and Sling and all this crap. So you're not stopping that, whether they're going after a Jeep or whether they're going after surveillance equipment. But the fact that they would hit it so precisely on the tower from so far away, it's really something. It's really something.
So we're right now in a strategic hill that the Israelis occupied momentarily after the ceasefire, and they wanted to keep. But the pressure of the returning Lebanese civilians to the villages around us here made them withdraw. But as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Israeli bases, all on the hilltops. This is al-Manara, Miskaf Am, and you could see even the colony. I don't like to call them settlements, because the word settlement means the land is empty and you came and settled it.
Yeah.
This is a colony. This is a stolen land that you colonized.
Yeah.
The colony there, Miskaf Am colony, got a lot of damage from the Lebanese resistance missiles.
And it's empty now, yeah?
It's empty. They're too scared to return because their own government is still bloodthirsty and could restart the war anytime. So they're worried that Hezbollah's...
Yeah, I mean, what's the figure? Like 80,000 they claim, but I think you could safely say it's 100, if not more. You know, the thing is, they have that possibility of just going back to where they came from. And I'm talking about them in general. You know, people here, they don't have 2, 3 locations to go to because they're native to it. But it tells you a lot about their mentality, about the colonizers, that they're willing to live in danger just for the sake of, you know, being spiteful. And I mean, it's just not sustainable, you know, even from you know, they tell people like, oh, this is the safest place in the world for Jews. No, it's actually quite the opposite, and they make it like that for themselves, you know. Anywhere you go, you start stealing land, people are going to get angry.
Well, the safest place for Jews is New York, Florida, and California.
Yeah.
Where they can...
Or Europe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the older ones can go to Florida, retire there. the ones that can act can go to Hollywood.
You know, I was standing just a few days ago looking at the similar colonies in Ireland, the British English colonies there, which they call Northern Ireland, but it's really in the north of Ireland, right? And you look here and it's the same disease of British colonialism. One and the same. And I know they have the whole backing of the West, but we need to keep reminding people that, you know, I see it as one occupation from there all the way to here.
Let's walk a little bit. You know, you reminded me, obviously not a lot of people know this, but Balfour, he was in charge of the occupation of Ireland.
Correct.
And he based his ideas of what he was going to do with Palestine on his experience in Ireland.
Yeah.
Even the troops that occupied Palestine, the British troops, were the battalions that were in charge of occupying Ireland.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's a very, you know, historical...
Black and tans.
That's it.
Yeah.
And obviously we don't do enough to curse the Brits.
No.
You know, we say death to America, death to Israel, but I think we should say, you know, it is the mother of all the bastard colonies.
Yeah, you know, they're demon spawns, basically. Irish people go ahead and do it in front of me, and I'm like, you know, I don't blame you. I don't blame you, honestly. And, you know, that kind of settler mentality also and demonization of the colonized or the native population, you see it, it's still alive and well in you know, the colonial population in Ireland. Very, very like, you know, oh, you're the terrorists, you know, you're brutal, you're uncivilized, and, you know, like we think we're better than you and we can take your land. It's copy paste, really. It's just, you know, many people are aware of that. But the Hannibal Directive that they used on October 7, a lot of bombs that were going off in the Troubles, you know, they call it like it's some kind of inconvenience. In these, you know, these horrific massacres, they were being allowed to happen by MI5, by Special Branch, by MI6. They knew that they were happening, they let them happen, and then they capitalized off of them to brutalize Catholics and to brutalize Irishmen. You know, rampant corruption, and they're really the terrorists, and so are the Israelis.
أيها العلوي الحسيني المحمدي، نحن أبناؤك المستظلون بعباءتك، أتينا نحوك وكل الجهات جنود الزمان على المؤمنين.
So we're in the border village of Majd al-Silm, and as you can see, they are parading the martyrs from the village. This is a village that suffered one of the largest waves of air bombardment and carpet bombing. Yeah. And today, in the area around Majd al-Silm, they're going to be putting to rest 100 fighters that were pulled out of the rubble over the last few weeks.
I heard it was over 100, is that correct?
Yes. So we're right now in Aitaroun village, right on the border with occupied Palestine.
It's impressive how people are coming out. They're still resilient and defiant. You know, the flags up everywhere, and I'm sure even without them, you know, just the procession itself, they know what's going on and what it represents. But they go all the way, and you know, this is how they honor their dead, and also show that they're not going to give up defending the land. You know, that's really. I think that's really what it comes down to ultimately with you know, people of the land and people that are taking control of the land, is that those, you know, that crowd ran away, didn't they? They all ran away on these bordering ones.
You can see they're coming back from the martyrdom procession that they were holding for the 100 Hizbullah fighters that were pulled out of the rubble in this village, Aitaroun. And this is the graveyard for the martyrs. People are, as we saw walking out, you see the scarves have the pictures of their family members that they have been martyred.
I mean, this procession is going like several kilometers long. I mean, it's all over the place.
You can see that the Israelis even targeted the graveyard.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, honestly. After seeing them do that also in Gaza, you know, just vicious behavior. I'll also add just that Native Americans had the same thing happening to them with the burial grounds being targeted in over there. So you see this is like a feature of colonialism.
Oh yeah. They chase the indigenous from when they are in the womb of their mother.
Yeah, and they don't even leave you in peace afterwards.
These are civilians
Yeah.
that were martyred here.
Yeah, you won't see that baby on the news like those two. They've been making a fuss about the last days, huh?
Hadi Hashim Sayyid Hassan is al-Mayadeen journalist that was martyred also.
When was this again? Didn't they kill 3 in one?
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah. God rest his soul.
I was 14 years old. I was in year 9. They took me to jail. I was the youngest in the jail then, and the oldest in the jail was a Christian guy who was 75 years old. When they used to play card in the jail, he used to say like, Ali is my partner, the youngest and the oldest, and the rest gonna come in across between.
This is in the Israeli jail that was
Yes.
here in the occupation, during the occupation period.
in a place called al-Hijazi. That's before they did al-Khiyam.
Yeah.
Before al-Khiyam, it was al-Hijazi, and then they make it bigger, they make it al-Khiyam.
And you went to Australia, you immigrated, but the minute the Israeli occupation was kicked out in the year 2000, you got on the first plane back.
I came into Aitaroun before people live in Tyre. I came into Aitaroun because before my siblings, they live the other side of South. When they came here, they found me and they got shocked. What are you doing here? Since when? I said, I've been here 2 hours. And they go, oh my God. You get from Australia to Aitaroun before us? I said, I can. I felt like I'm gonna have a heart attack if I don't come with the first people comes in the village.
And this, during this war, you were here or in Australia?
No, I was in Australia.
And you came back when?
I came back on Saturday, just for this past funeral of my own villages, which is most of them are like lots of them is my friends, or if not my friends, my friends' kids.
God rest their souls.
And there is about 22 of my own family in this mass grave, like of Hijazi family. Yeah. That's what we can remember of them, the Israelis, and we have to tell them we will never forget and we will never forgive. We're gonna teach that to our grandchildren and great-great-great-grandchildren to carry the flag of the resistance, and they keep going.
Even when Palestine is liberated, we're gonna tell our grandchildren about the crimes of these Zionist colonists.
Yeah. My mother, she was 10 years old in 1938, and they were displaced from here to other villages up there, like 10 kilometers away. She carried her brother, he was 1 month old, from here to a village called Kaunin. That's My mother used to tell me the story how she carried her brother and she ran away with him.
Ya Allah. أنتو رافعين راسنا أهل الجنوب. From a Palestinian to the people in South Lebanon, you have carried our heads up high. The sacrifice of the people of South Lebanon is equal to the sacrifices of all the Arabs combined and more.
We are with Palestine, not from now, not from Hizbullah, not from the national resistance before Hizbullah. Even before that, my father's uncle, he was a shaheed in Palestine in 1948.
Wow. You saw how the colonies are empty across.
I did, yeah.
Not only are they empty, they will not also come to bury their dead in those colonies, as these defiant people are doing right now here on this front line.
No, they won't. No.
The American government saying that they requested the Israelis to bomb the funeral of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. Yeah, and that they were thinking about this. Yeah.
And that 1.5 million people that were out for the funeral of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and Sayyid Hashim Safiyuddin, every one of them knew that that was a possibility.
Yeah.
And they all came.
They came nonetheless because, you know, again, I think it's both a difference in culture, mentality, and also it's you're not going to have that defiance when you know this is not your land. You know, they don't leave you alone whether you're in the womb or you're in the graveyard. Even you get no peace from them, or they try at least to prevent that. They're evil. They're sick, really. It's got nothing to do with their so-called security or survival. They are, you know, this is about theft, greed, about expansion, about you know, the same Western colonialism we've been seeing for centuries. And I think people here also understand that if they don't show this defiance and they don't keep their practices going, their traditions going, and they stay in the land, that, you know, they could end up like other extinct peoples.
You know, at the beginning of this war, I started calling Zionists Jew-saders.
Yeah, that's what they are.
And
what's the difference between them and a crusader?
There's nothing. They think that God gave them this land.
It's the same land that they're murdering people over and using, and like ISIS. You know?
And the Crusaders, the first victims of the Crusaders were the Christian Syrians and the Christian Palestinians,
which are again the original Christians. You know.
And you know what's crazy is that the Zionists, when they saw me calling them Jew-saders, they actually adopted it and said proudly, "We are Jew-saders." There's now a group of these Zionists online. If people want to look on Twitter, put the word Jew-sader and in the search. People have it in their bios.
Really?
You know, Knight Templars of the Jew-saders. They're proudly calling themselves that. And if they weren't criminal, they wouldn't be proud of it.
Despite the fact that this is the largest funeral Hezbollah ever held in its history, more than 100 martyrs from the same village. And for some people, this is a show of basically how much sacrifices Hezbollah gave in this war. Yeah. So it's more related to a sad sentiment, a sad memory that 100 fighters were martyred from the same village. But in the same time, this will show everyone that when the Israeli military thought that by targeting the strategic weapons of the resistance and by doing the pagers attacks and by targeting the facilities and killing the command, that the people here were relying on weapons to defend their land, they weren't. They just, when everything the Israeli did reached a level of, okay, now they have most of the strategic capabilities of the resistance destroyed or buried somewhere or unable to be activated immediately during the war, they pick it up their Kalashnikovs and
Yeah.
their basic weapons, and they went to fight.
Right.
And they were able to stop the Israelis. Now we are 100 meters away from the Israeli border, from the Israeli Czech military bases and the borders with occupied Palestine. But this is because
Of the sacrifice.
the tens and hundreds and thousands actually of fighters who went from everywhere, but from this village more than 100 martyrs got martyred, fighting only to tell the people that if you destroyed all of our strategic capabilities, we will still fight,
Yeah.
even with our bare hands, because what fights within these people, what fights is their will to stay here, their will to live in this village that is their village, their ancestors' village.
Yeah.
Well, the most strategic weapon that the Palestinians and the Lebanese people have is their conviction
Yeah.
in the justness of our cause, the love of our land, the love of our people, and that's what they've been for 100 years trying to break and have not been able to break, alhamdulillah.
You know, that's really a lot to give 100 men, sons, brothers from one village. Really, that is no small sacrifice at all. It's enormous, actually. It's really enormous. I mean, and people are still coming out, you know, and you know, they could hold the funerals as funerals, but this is also a show of solidarity even after the head of the whole movement is taken out, or martyred rather. It's both, you know, and it goes back to what you were saying about conviction. And you know, I've never seen anything like this when it comes to the settlers, you know, the colonizers. They you know, they make that a whole militaristic show, and it's a, you know, I mean, you go look at what they've got to offer. They because they know at the end of the day they got to leave the land at one point, you know.
You know, the Zionists were really defeated October 7th. If it wasn't for the non-stop weapons delivery and support, logistical support by the whole might of the empire,
Yeah.
they would have been already gone out of our land. And that shows you how cowardly they are. They are a weak enemy. Without the direct intervention
Without
of the
NATO,
United
without
States.
EU, they would be gone.
Right.
They'd be gone. It's,
After 16 months of this war, we have visual evidence of what Israeli soldiers are good in. And the only thing they're good in is wearing women's lingerie.
thank you. Yeah.
That's the only thing they're
That's
good
all
at.
they're good at.
And we've never seen any military in the whole history of warfare do that.
That's
And
really
for
saying
sure,
something.
they're number
Yeah.
one.
For sure. Yeah, no, they excel in cowardice, honestly. They excel in that. It takes nothing to, you know, kill people from above and then ransack their clothes afterwards. And I'll just, you know, I know this is kind of obvious, but, you know, the fact that you have like 8 police or 6 police waiting in an airport for an academic or a journalist, but not for someone who commits genocide or murder. I mean, what, you know, that makes me sick to my stomach, honestly. And that's another form of support that the West is giving. It's not just they're giving them jets, it's that they won't even like, you know, they won't even apply the law, because these people are terrorists, you know. There is a violation of Genocide Convention, Terrorism Act, you name it. You can find their participation to be unlawful, but they won't even question them. They won't even detain them.
I was here in 2006. We moved to Lebanon in 2003. I'm from Australia, by the way.
I heard,
my
yeah.
accent, yeah. We moved here in 2003. 2006, we were in this village when the war started. The third day is when they started hitting civilians. The third day. The first family that got hit is just up the road from here. There were 2 families. They're buried in this graveyard.
Wow.
There were 2 families visiting this village from Canada.
Oh,
Right? So that showed us straight away. It doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter what it is.
yeah, that's
The
something
first
people
family
keep in
that
mind.
got killed in this village during the 2006 war was considered a foreign family to Lebanon.
Yeah,
They were
and
visiting.
look how the government there will keep giving weapons and cover
And that's the thing.
after their own citizens are killed. That shows
that's
you how
the
you
thing.
get sold out for the sake of Zionism.
And that's the thing. And right now, it's the same sort of scenario happening over there. They're trying to entrap people. The Daily Telegraph is trying to entrap people into like anti-Semite scenarios and so on.
Yeah, you know, I call this anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
These are Semites that
These
have
are
been
Semites.
murdered by a bunch of Europeans.
These are
This is
Semites.
anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
When you come in a village here that's thousands of years old and you destroy the graves, this is really anti-Semitism. And you know, these people, they have no connection to this land. None.
You came back it's in 2006 and you stayed and you didn't go back to Australia, or
As you know, we came in 2003. What happened was I'm born in Australia. The result of what my parents being in Australia is the result of Israeli occupation. My dad's from this village. He was ran out of this village in 83. In 86, my family over here fixed up paperwork and all that and went to Australia. I took my dad with them. My dad never wanted to leave. In the year 2000, when they announced
When the Hizbullah kicked them out.
they got kicked out, the moment it got announced was about maybe 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning in Australia. 6 a.m. my dad was on the flight out.
Wow.
And he came straight back to the village. My dad is a village boy. Here's a funny story. In 96, we came here as well. We were coming up to the village, and on every stop, because they had from Aitaroun all the way in, and on every stop with the army, the checkpoints, I was a little kid, I was like 6 years old. I jumped my head out and going, Hizbullah. My grandmother wouldn't take me. She dropped me off in Tabnina, my aunties, and she wouldn't take me. So in 2000, we came here, and we stayed in this village for 6 months. In 2003, my dad had already been working towards moving us here, wanting us to live here.
Yeah.
He wanted us to know the culture.
Yeah.
One thing
That's
I
really
learned,
important.
and that's the thing, the outlook that I learned from being here is that little things that you notice, like little things that you take for granted overseas, playing a little game of soccer, you watch the youth here do these little normal things that everyone else does, and you feel like it's appreciated more here because they had to actually fight for it.
Exactly.
Right? People felt what it felt like to be occupied. And the thing is, at this point in time now, in 2000 when the Israelis got kicked out, these people that you see here, they tasted freedom. They feel hurt and they feel pain, and of course they do. They love just like everyone else. But the problem is now they've tasted freedom. There's no going back from that. There's no going. You're gonna have to re-educate 2 generations down the line to accept occupation again, which it won't happen.
No.
And these faces that you see here,
Yeah.
these faces here on the pictures, all of these faces here are a constant reminder for the next generation. What would you do in that situation? What would you accept? Would you accept occupation? Would you accept this barbarity?
Never.
Or would you say, no, you're going to stand up? And these people here with all the yellow stripes and everything that they're doing today, that's them saying that they will never go back to pre-2000. They will never go back to occupation. They will never go back to a lack of dignity and a lack of self-respect and a lack of freedom in itself. And that's what it is here. I'm from outside looking in, and I could feel that in the sense where I could appreciate their own movement. Like as an outsider, I don't want to, claim it on my own. I'm a kid from Australia, man. I've got all the benefits of, being from Sydney and all that kind of stuff. But when you see a people who, lose their sons, lose their fathers, lose their brothers, or lose their uncles for that dignity, you understand what freedom means to some people.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say, man. I don't know what else to say. For the Sayyid though, we mentioned the Sayyid before.
Yeah.
After that 3rd day, it became a bit of a perpetual state of fear for us. Being from outside, I was a teenager, I'd never seen anything like this before. And then it was consecutive. Every day, 2 or 3 families would get hit. And then, I think it could have been the 7th or 8th, 5th day maybe, I can't even remember. We turned on the generators to see the news and his voice came on. And he spoke. And that's when they hit the battleship. But it wasn't even hitting the battleship. His voice itself in the middle of a war zone, no electricity, no nothing, and the buzzing over the skies 24/7, and the fighter jets 24/7. His voice alone just inspired even a kid that doesn't understand the situation, the full capacity of the situation, as a teenager, and there was no more fear left. He just left. It was something heavenly that we tasted from him that is hard to explain to an outsider. but all that fear went just from his voice.
Yeah.
And then I go back to Australia, and he's been here since then until he was killed, until he was assassinated. And what do you think a hero's voice is after he dies for what he believes in? What do you think his words mean after that? How many generations do you think that's going to raise? And that's the thing.
You can't explain this kind of, loss to everyone. You know what I mean? Especially those on the outside, because they don't understand the value of what the words mean, right?
They haven't had a hero like that in their civilization in hundreds of years.
Thank you.
They may need to go back to Joan of Arc to feel like that's the dignity and holiness of fatherhood, of love hero to a hero. They don't have something like this. They can't imagine it.
On the subject, man, speaking of that, I'm a poet from Australia. I wrote a poem and I made a video clip out of it. If when we're done, I'd like to show you it.
Yes.
It's on the subject of being a hero, and we're talking about 2006.
Yeah.
So this poem I wrote it 2 months after the war in Gaza began.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was more of an ode to that we've been there with you before.
Yes. Yeah.
And for us, like you said, it was a hero that appeared for us, and just everything became, how can I say it, I don't want to say achievable, but we felt like we could persevere. We felt spurred on. We felt like, okay, it's okay, no matter what happens from this point on, even if they hit us, it's fine. Some people in this world just have this ability when they stand for truth. No,
I think God spoke through him. If I may say that, because the conviction and the truth is it's irrefutable, and I think the words mean even more now. And it's funny that we're bringing this topic up because I was just in Ireland.
Yeah.
And I saw the occupied territories there.
Yeah.
And they also had a funeral just this week for one of their senior leaders who led the hunger strikes in the prison, which inspired the Palestinians to do hunger strikes. And they put out a massive banner for him in the stadium during a football match.
Was it a recent one?
Just this week. His name is Bick. So he led the hunger strikes in the 80s.
He survived the hunger strikes.
Yeah.
Oh, he survived the hunger
Now
strikes.
he just died out of old age.
Yeah. And that, I feel like
You're talking
people
about Bobby Sands.
during those hunger strikes, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
I feel the Irish, if anyone in the West is going to understand everything you outline now, it will be them.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, because they've been on the receiving end of occupation, and it's the same actors. It's the same actors who are doing it.
When you mentioned your father bringing you back here and so on, I mean, we hear, of course, in Australia and Canada, the US and Europe complaining about immigrants and too many Arabs and too many Muslims, but they don't understand that we wouldn't leave this land if they don't create these wars.
Exactly.
Who would want to leave this beautiful heaven if these Zionists are not on the other side stealing and killing and raping and pillaging? We don't want to be in the cold of Canada or the desert of Australia when we have this heaven. Just leave us alone and take your European garbage with you, the Zionists, and we will stay here. We don't want to come to your goddamn lands that are cursed anyways.
In fact.
This was, I think, a very good first day.
Yeah.
Bringing you all the way from the airport directly to this funeral, so you can have.
I'm honored that I was here, really, because, like we were saying, this is the biggest collective funeral of Hizbullah martyrs ever. All of these people honored in one day, and honestly, they will forever be honored. Every day henceforth by the people here and by everyone who is freedom loving and who honors the truth, because they are one and the same. And I'm grateful that you brought me here. And I'd heard of it, but I wasn't under the illusion, under the impression that we'd actually have time to come here. So I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful.
Well, you know, Hadi is a great driver. He drove really fast. I mean, people complain when they're watching our driving on the videos, but they don't know that he's a rally driver trained kind of.
There you go.
You are still watching Free Palestine TV. Visit our website, freepalestine.video, donate, share all the content on all the platforms you can, and we're going to be bringing you more with Richard Medhurst as his time in Lebanon. We will have more time to do in-depth interviews and talk about the troubles in Europe. Until we meet next time, we bid you all a free Palestine.